I get it. I don't agree with it, but I can understand it. So the government will pass the Alien and Sedition Act, which basically you can't say anything bad about the government. We are kind of almost at war with France. We're kind of almost at war with England. Mainly we're talking about France here. We're almost at war with France. So don't say anything stupid that's going to hurt our situation with France. Don't do anything dumb. Shut your mouth. And it's not just shut your mouth. It's if you say something by law that's going to hurt our war effort or our relationship with France, you're going to jail. And you might say, that's crazy. You can't throw somebody in jail for saying something or criticizing the government. Guess what, folks? Yes, you could. And yes, you can. You're probably thinking, no, you got this wrong. That was 200 years ago. Okay, people were stupid then, but that's not the case today. No, it is still on the books. You can be imprisoned for saying things that hurt America's efforts, especially towards war. But I've got freedom of speech. I'm glad that you're joining me for this American history lesson and the American history lessons that will follow, but our government can and will arrest you for hurting the war effort. So let's just break this down. Alien and Sedition Act. An act is a word for a law. What is an alien? No, it's not space aliens, but it kind of is. Belonging to a foreign country or nation or outer space. That is an alien. So the law is going to be about people belonging to a foreign country or nation, and it's also going to be about sedition. Conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against the authority of a state or monarch. Sedition is illegal. If you incite rebellion against the American government, you can and will go to jail then and today. Let me repeat that for the people that think history is just history. You cannot incite a rebellion. If you try to create a revolution, they can arrest you. They can throw you in jail and keep you in jail. And this has and continues to happen throughout American history. This is not one isolated event. You try to shut down the government, they will come and get you. Let's just talk about the alien part. So the alien part was, we need to kick out the illegal immigrants that favor France. You're kicking us out because we're French? That's xenophobic. You are just a racist, and you hate us because we're different than you. That probably is one part of it, but that is loser think. If you think that way then, if you think that way today, when we kick out immigrants or illegal aliens, yes, there is a racist element. Yes, there is a xenophobic element to some of these policies. But to think that that is the only variable is loser think. You need to understand that complex issues involve multiple variables. Two things can be true at once. One, there could be racism involved. But two, there are spies in our country. There have been spies in our country. There is spies in our country. And there will be spies in our country. You're like, oh, these Americans always think people are coming over and spying. Yes, there have been terrorist attacks where people who were foreign enemies came into our country. During the 1940s and 50s, the Russian government had foreign spies in it's just not people think like, oh, they're just some spies. There were spies in our country during the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and those spies worked in our government, worked in the highest levels of our government. It wasn't just some dude sleuthing around in the corner, in the alley, in the dark. These people had power, positions of power. So yes, there is a legitimate argument we need to watch out for aliens that are spies. It's not just complete xenophobia. It's not just pure racism. There is a legitimate reason to why you might want to remove people who are actively trying to overthrow your government. But yes, there also is some racism there. And even if there isn't racism there, it's kind of wrong to do this. Now, the sedition part. We're at war. Quasi-war. Whether we're shooting each other or not, we're not getting along with France. So we're trying to deal with this. And we can't deal with this if you're saying bad things that are going to hurt the war effort. So if you're going to protest and do stupid stuff, you're going to jail. You're saying to yourself, well, that's crazy. You can't do that. Well, guess what, folks? They could do that, and they still can do that. Welcome to American history that you've never been taught. I hope the red, I hate to say red pill, but I know that some of you are saying, no, they can't do this. Yes, they can and will. So Kentucky actually tries to fight this, and they pass the Kentucky Resolves. We don't like it, so we're just going to ignore the law, and we're going to fight this based on the 10th Amendment, based on states' rights. Now, a lot of times, again, another red pill, when you hear states' rights, you think completely of racism and slavery. And sure, that is one part of it, but part of the roots of the states' rights argument is the argument for freedom of speech, freedom of states not to follow abuses of power by the federal government. This often gets forgotten because we just want to paint everything states' rights as a racism issue. Sure, there's definitely racism and slavery involved when we talk about states' rights, but there's also this pesky little thing with the Kentucky Resolves where they're actually fighting the federal government, fighting for states' rights because they're fighting for the rights of citizens. This is the Kentucky Resolves, and they say you're violating our freedom of speech. And so Kentucky says, look, we're not even going to listen to it. It's boom, nullification. We don't have to face bad laws. We have rights, and the government is overstepping their power. They do not have the enumerated power to do this, so Kentucky rights law says we don't have to listen to it. Well, the problem is that Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution says that the Supreme Court, or that the federal law, or the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, blah, 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 blah. But basically, federal government has more power. Now, the Constitution is number one, but federal law is more important than state law and county law and town law. So number one is Constitution. Number two is federal law, then state law. So if state law says we're not listening to federal law, well, you can't do that. State law cannot nullify federal law based on the supreme law of the land article in Article 6, the supremacy clause. So technically, the Alien Sedition Act is going to stay in place. We don't care what you say about Kentucky. So technically, the guy that wrote this was Thomas Jefferson. Don't tell anybody. Well, he isn't even from Kentucky. Well, whatever. He's the guy that wrote the Kentucky Resolves, and he probably shouldn't have been writing it because he was the vice president at the time. Wait a second. The federal government, the president and vice president are trying to stay out of war, but the guy who is writing the thing what doesn't make it? Well, the vice president didn't agree with it, and so he tried to fight back. Now, no one knew. Now, when he gets elected president, the Alien Sedition Act has to be renewed. He does not renew it, and he lets it die. Sweet. Thank goodness. Glad we got rid of that one. Awesome, huh? It took them a while, but they got rid of it. So the Alien Sedition Act problem was it was limiting free speech. Not really the alien part, but the sedition part's what we're talking about. So the alien part's going to stay. The sedition part the time will run out on that, where you throw people in jail for speaking their mind. You can't do that, the First Amendment. Well, too bad, because in 1918, they're going to repass the Sedition Act. You can say, well, that one probably ran out too, and good thing we're not following that one today. No, look at Schenck versus the U.S. We are still throwing people in jail for hurrying the war cause. Look up, this is a famous court case. We'll talk about this in American history too. Oliver Wendell Holmes will give a great explanation of the Sedition Act, and we'll talk about that in a later issue. But yeah, you can't speak your mind. Sorry, folks. Defender, maybe you like it. Maybe you want people to have their mouths shut up. So maybe you wish I would shut up. They're going to use the Sedition Act on me, no doubt.